If you've noticed, there has been a rise in reviews because now it's the North American critics who are finally getting to see Dune. Few of them did see it if they managed to go to TIFF or Venice or other places, but this is sort of the more, for lack of a better word, regular North American critics. And we're going to look at one case in particular, Perri Nemiroff, who works for Collider. Now, I know for many sci-fi fans, Collider is very, very mixed. And I do agree that they're very mixed in many places, but I did enjoy them in some places, like their Heroes show, at least for a while when Schnepp was doing it. And Perry herself is very mixed as a critic. Sometimes she's very harsh, sometimes she's very kind. She's really more of a horror person, and she's very strong in horror. She's not a Dune fan, she admits that. She did consult the audiobook, which helped her a lot. But now I have actually just read the book, so I don't know the audiobook, but apparently it's very heavily edited, so it doesn't give you the whole book. At least she's been exposed to the story overall. So we're going to hear her speak positively and negatively and assess how she's good representation of what probably to expect from critics.
Move, but even going into Dune with a very clear understanding of what he's capable of behind the lens, it in no way prepared me for how incredible and all-consuming every frame of this movie is. I am not going to say you need to see Dune on the big screen if you are not ready to go back to a movie theater yet. And also because I truly do believe that Dune will still be a visual feast watching it home sweet home. But if you are someone who is just debating between watching it at home or seeing it in the theater and you are comfortable with being in that crowd again, I'd probably nudge you in the direction of the big screen option. This movie, it swallowed me whole with its visuals and truly felt like it transported me to Caladan, Paul's homeworld, and also Arrakis. It's just one pretty picture after the next.
Well, the positives are the obvious. It looks very much like a visual spectacle. The special effects were very well done, and the cinematography is excellent. So it looks great. It's a very Paul-centric story, so most of the focus is on him. We get a little bit of time, but not that much time with the other supporting cast, but she's very enthusiastic about their performances. However, on the negative side, the long running time she felt did add to some sluggishness in the pacing, but only in a few scenes.
I'm giving Dune 4 Deweys out of 5 on the Dewey Decimal movie scale. This right here is a very good adaptation, but I have to bring up the runtime of the film simply because I did feel it at times. There's not a chunk of the movie that lags, I wouldn't say that. It's more little speed bumps here and there. But again, because I felt it, I must mention it to you. And also, while I do think that Dune Part One finds great success with Paul's growth, Dune can feel, I guess, a tad flat here and there. And
there was some flatness to the performances, but she thought that was intentional and perhaps in keeping with the story. I'd have to say this is where she probably doesn't know the books. I think this is something that Denis has introduced to try to separate himself stylistically from Jodorowsky as well as Lynch. Because those adaptations, whatever their faults, were brimming with energy, but perhaps they were a little too psychedelic, and what they were planning in terms of the designs as well as story was a little out there. But I do think it captured at least a little bit of the flavor of the actual book, whereas the sci-fi version is much more faithful to the plot, but it's not as exciting or as gripping as the Lynch version. Overall, a very positive recommendation on Dune. She does caution that if you don't want to see it in theaters, you shouldn't, but she does lean theatrical if you can do it safely. I would say she definitely only knows the broad story because the way she talks about Duncan, Idaho, in the performance. You're free to like the performance, but it is very unfaithful to the books from what I've seen. So this is very much a non-fan perspective, but that's good. It seems like it is very open to new people. It might be overwhelming without at least a little bit of prior preparation. Very good news for Dune that it is going to be open to new people and more diehard fans. It's a nice, very general review if you're beginning with Dune, but if you're a much more intermediate person or advanced person, she gets a few details wrong, and she's clearly more of a Villeneuve fan than a Dune fan, but that's fine, and at least she gets his name right, which some people don't even get that right. So it's a very nice general review, but if you're more advanced, it's sort of like, okay, well, it's nice that some critics are being positive, but you're not going to learn much. It's interesting to note how deeply and strongly that Denis has focused on Paul and his family. Whether this is what the larger fandom wants, we're going to have to wait and see. Thanks for listening.